So today I am chatting to Costa Carastavrakis, and Costa is the author of a memoir, I Am Costa, From Meths to Marathons. And his book came out 5 months ago. And Costa really has been walking the path to being a published author and getting his book out into the world. So welcome, Costa.
Hello, Sarah. How are you?
Great. And we wanted to talk a little bit about specifically, Costa, that step that all authors have to take, which is where you send your book to publishers. Please just talk us through that and who you sent it to, how it felt, and then how it really got into the place where you got a publishing deal.
Well, firstly, I got to the so-called end result of first draft, great blurb, great marketing selling document. Thanks to you and Kate. You know, things were tight. It looked good. It was professional. I wasn't this so-called home writer who wants to self-publish but may look at publishers. No, I looked very legit. I also had a website up. I was robust. I had already done some PR work around myself and what I wanted to do, so I didn't look like this green coming out of nowhere. When a publisher got an email from me, they were like, "Oh, okay, this is not just a manuscript. There's a lot more going on here." So how did I do that? Well, firstly, through you, Sarah, we approached some publishers. Thank you very much. And then after a couple of months of waiting, and it is a waiting game, and it took a while. And of course, as you know me, I get frustrated easily, and I'm quite tenacious. And you gave me good advice. You said, go and look at all the books you can find, and find some publishers that perhaps I don't know of or are new on the scene. And I went and I actually, in a South African context, Sarah, you're very well covered, but I found maybe 3 or 4 others. And cold, I sent them some stuff. And we all know cold calling and stuff isn't really like that successful. But I got a response from one publisher in about 3 days. She read the manuscript a week later. What I find with smaller publishers is, they've got to jump at opportunities when they see them. They're very nimble. There were only 5 employees in my publisher, and they worked very, very fast, which I really liked. And they sat me down and they said, "We like your book, but it needs certain changes. And are you open to us discussing how we change the book?" And I knew there was something wrong with my book. I couldn't put my finger on it. And this is what I didn't like about sending it out to all the publishers. I didn't know what was wrong with it. And they looked at me and they said, "This is what's wrong with it. This is what the direction needs to move in. This is how it needs to change." They basically chopped it in half. And what I love about my publisher, she helped me in 3 one-hour Skype calls. That's all it took. Over 3 months to recraft the book. So I rewrote it twice. The first time, she said, "Chuck away this second half, weave this into the first half." And we discussed it. I went away, I rewrote it, I came back, and then the second rewrite was actually just more of a scrub, where I scrubbed it clean, etc. And it took 3 Skype calls with them. That's how well they got what I wanted to say. And it was really, really good. You know, they weren't just the publishers who said, "Right, let's cut and paste," or "just fix something and let's go." They pushed me to write a new, much more enhanced version of my book, which I really am grateful to them for that.
Costa, were any other publishing deals presented to you?
Well, this is what my first publisher said. What the publisher I went with said was, I said, "Where's our deal? Let's sign." She says, and very cleverly said, "We're not going to sign. Let's work together for a few months and see how it goes." You know, they wanted to know that, I had it in me to rewrite, etc., etc. So they were testing the water with me, actually. And while they were doing that, thanks to you, Sarah, your phone rang and we got a deal, an opportunity, not a deal on the table. We got very, very thorough feedback from Penguin, who wanted to do something with the book and advise on what it needed. And so I was faced with, I went to my other publisher. I said, "Look, Penguin has approached me." And they said, "Well, I said, it's not a beauty competition. I'm just telling you, because as much as I am seduced by the name Penguin, their vision for the book didn't resonate with me as much as the smaller publisher's vision for the book, because what I wanted was the best manuscript. I knew that book sales were not going to retire me. I wanted the best output. And what I got two publishers, one with one vision, another with another vision. I went for the best vision, not necessarily the biggest publisher. And I'm glad I did that.
Great, Costa. Yeah, absolutely. So let's fast forward a little bit to the place where your book suddenly is available. You've got this copy in your hand, and you know it's going into bookstores. Tell me about that process of actually getting the book out into the world and how you experience that, and some tips and tricks and behind the scenes there.
Firstly, be very ready for walking into a bookshop and seeing 50 of your faces staring at you right in the front. I never got used to it. It still freaked me out. It still freaks me out today going onto Amazon and seeing my face there. It really is something that is, here's the one thing. As soon as you're published, you can't hide from the fact that you're a writer and an author. You can't downplay it. And that was the biggest thing for me to get over is, I used to downplay, oh, maybe I can write, maybe I'm good, maybe I'm this and that. You know what? You have to step into the light. You literally have to just own it. And I woke up one day and I was like, I'm a published author, get cracking. You only get to publish your first book once. Okay? I saw some gaps in my publishers' launch ideas and their PR. And the gaps were they don't have enough resources. They've got a whole bunch of other authors they're about to launch. You're one of many. Let's go. Although they were giving me a lot of attention, I knew I wanted more attention. And the thought of having 2 launches, one in Cape Town, one in Joburg, didn't appeal to me. They were going to do like expensive launches, and I said, actually, no, I want 10 launches around the country. So we did 11 launches at the cost of 1 launch in Joburg. I drove to Durban. I stayed with friends in Cape Town. I bought my own PA system. So, it only cost 4,000 Rand. And my own PA system meant we didn't have to rent a PA system and pay 10 grand for one. We serve no alcohol because it's a book on addiction and recovery. The snacks was literally, we did 1 platter, and even that didn't get finished. We didn't waste money on all these expensive press packs, etc., etc. I got the word out there. I really hit the ground running. 11 launches later, Nelspruit, Durban, Bloem, Joburg, Cape Town. And then we finished the money. What I also did was they did some PR, sent the mails out and chased emails. And I know with PR, you kind of need to do more than that. I got a PR list from somebody. I paid them a few thousand Rand for their list of contacts, and I started phoning. And I didn't stop phoning. And I phoned and I phoned and I phoned. And I asked friends. And I got 9 radio interviews, 4 national TV shows, interviews, a whole bunch of online people, and all the local community papers. If I was doing a talk in Nelspruit, I got the local paper to come and showcase me. They were like, "Oh, but you're not a local author." I'm like, "Well, I'm visiting. Let's go." In Bloem, I had the best response. I got 2 newspapers, 1 magazine, and a radio station. Bloem, I blanketed. It took a lot of effort on my part, and I'm really glad I did it, because once again, you only launch your first book once. Do it properly. Take the time out. Work with your publisher. I worked with them. I said, great, I can see your resources are stretched. I'm your plug-in department. We're going to meet once a week and do a status. I made it easier for them to help me. I gave them lists of who to send the book to. I drove the process. And they were only too happy to, because that freed them up to do other work. And they weren't going to do as much as I was doing anyway.
Absolutely, Costa. I think, your tips are just so phenomenal about the launches. And that is really the misconception with authors, is that the publisher is going to sell your books for you. How for you was it the actual sales? When you're standing in front of somebody and saying, buy my book, how does that feel for you, within your friends and within the bigger circle? Are you comfortable in that?
So what I decided to do was not to sell, even though I can buy the books wholesale and sell them to my friends. I sold my book to no friends. I made it a very concerted effort to support the bookseller. In other words, every exclusive book, when my second book comes out, they must look and go, oh, I remember this. It sold well the first time. I would have made more money had I told all my friends, a few hundred friends, just buy it from me. I'll get it to you. Okay. But for me, it was more around establishing myself as somebody who can actually move books through the regular South African retail channels. I live in South Africa. I'll be published here again. I need the booksellers to go, I remember that sold well. So yes, granted, if you're doing a talk, I did one private function, I sold 30 books. If you're doing a talk at a corporate and you want to do sell-through of books, different story. But in the launch phase, so many of my friends say, oh, where can I buy your book? Where you normally buy books, honey. We were in 220 doors around the country. We were in the Mamzimtoti CNA. There was no excuse for anyone to get it. In fact, I drove my publisher. They said, no, CNA will never take on your book. They do Trevor Noah and Thabo Mbeki. Newsflash, they took my book, put it in 60 doors.
That's incredible, really, Jana. I mean, you have been incredibly out there with it, and that really is why your book is out there, and it's selling, and you're doing strong sales, and it's still moving along, which is so fantastic. I think that just the last thing I wanted you to unpack a little bit is this concept of doing a talk, because I know you and I spoke about it a lot. The fact that you have to be able to stand up with a message. How did that evolve? Because you hadn't really spoken before this book, apart from at friends' parties, possibly. But something shifted your whole life, hasn't it?
So I've always wanted to become a speaker. And the book was one of the avenues to get me there. We didn't do the classical book launch format with question answer. I stood up and I did a mini keynote, a 25-minute keynote speech, and then opened for questions and answers. A format that took a lot of convincing to get the bookstores to agree to it, because they wanted, a bookish author to sit with somebody and be guided. I was like, no, I know how to guide myself. It's a book about me. Let's do it. But your question was around speaking. People want to talk to an author. People want to engage with an author. So making yourself available makes all the difference. What I love about the book is it also creates a veil. That's me, and then there's the book. I'm not my book. And I've had to learn that lesson very quickly. Especially with people who think the book is incomplete, think I was lying, think I was this, that, and the other. A lot of opinions come up. I'm not my book. My book is there. So I'll speak about myself. I'll talk about the book. We're not one. Big difference.
Interesting, Costa. And then I think we're going to have to come back for another round of our chats because our time's almost up. I just wanted, just going back to that phase, which I think so many writers are stuck in. They've written the book. They don't know if it's any good. They've got a proposal together. What advice can you give them on that next step, which is sending it out into the world? What got you through that?
Don't think of yourself as small. Anybody who finishes a first draft can write. Okay. I told myself in the beginning, I'm a writer, even though I'd never written a book before. Believe that you're a writer. I could visualize my book on shelves all over the world. I got used to the fact that I was going to be published. So it's almost like versus the sheepish approach of maybe I can write, maybe I can't. Here's my book. Tell me if you like it or not. Are you joking? It's hundreds of hours of my time. Bloody right. I'm proud of my book and I can write. It may not be good, but we do know one thing. I'm committed to writing. At least bring that to the table. Bring that I'm a committed writer who's also willing to do what my publisher wants to do, who's willing to listen to their agent and try and do more with it. And doors open. They swing open.
And Costa, lastly, to what extent do you think publishers bought into your story, and to what extent did they buy into you as who you are, your sort of brand
Oh.
persona that you had put together. By the time you sent your book out, you had crafted quite carefully a persona.
So this is where I knew I had a decent book when I said to my publisher, I'd love to meet you. You know, I wanted to kind of maybe do a bit of the Costa show for her. I was like, I'd like to meet you, etc., etc. Have you looked at my website and whatever? She says, I haven't. Send me your manuscript and I'll get back to you. I was like, oh, that's bloody rude. Okay. Sent the manuscript. And when I met her, she said, it's nice to meet you. I said, oh, here's my more article I've done and whatever. She says, once I'd read your manuscript, I then looked at who you were. She said, I needed to know that we had a book first. She's a real publisher's publisher who needs to know that there's a book that's not backed up by whatever. So the Costa show didn't actually work. It was more about it confirmed for her that it was somebody that needed to sign up. So I'm pretty chuffed that the book stood alone on its own.
Oh, fantastic, Costa. I've got a big smile on my face. Thank you so much for all of your time. I'm reminding everybody.
Thank you and Kate, because I acknowledge you guys in the back of the book. You guys seriously know what you're doing and really helped me. And I want to say thank you very, very much to both of you.
Thank you. Beautiful, Costa.